Early retired? Why you might not get the QBI deduction for Section 199A dividends. Hi, it's financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So I've talked about 199A dividends on the channel before, and a lot of Americans have these Section 199A dividends. They show up in Box 5 of Form 1099 DIV. And it's interesting because if you're early retired, you might not get the qualified business income deduction, the 199A deduction, whatever you call it, with respect to these 199A dividends, even though there's no income limit on the ability to deduct those dividends. So let's talk about it. And I'm going to sort of illustrate that's probably good news, not bad news. So I've got a single early retiree. His name is Justin. He's age 56. He's got a traditional IRA, Roth IRA. He's not touching those in the first part of his early retirement. He owns in a taxable brokerage account, ABC Domestic Equity Index Fund, $1 million value. Its basis is about 44.4%, and its yield's a bit higher than 1.5%. He has a $50,000 online savings account, called 4% interest, paid off home, and he's living off $90,000 in 2025, and he's going to do that just through capital gains. He's just going to sell some of that ABC Domestic Equity Index Fund, sell the $90,000, live off that. Well, can he get the 199A deduction, and what does his taxes look like? Lots of really interesting stuff here. So I'm putting together his tax return. I'm going to increase this so you can see it a little better. His interest income just $2,000, qualified dividends $13,000, 199A dividends of $1,000. So you'd expect him to get the 199A deduction, but hint, hint, he's not. And then other non-qualified dividends from this domestic equity index fund of $1,000. He's got long-term capital gains of $50. If he's got 44.4% basis, basically shakes out to he sells $90. And he recovers $40 of basis, $50 of long-term cap gains. His AGI, his adjusted gross income, is $67. Standard deduction is $15,000. Taxable income of $52,000. Now you say, well, why doesn't he get the 199A deduction for those 199A dividends up here? And it's because of a nuance in the rule. The rule says that you can only take that deduction to the extent your taxable income exceeds your net capital gain. And here, he actually has more net capital gain, the long-term cap gains, the qualified dividend, 63, then when you smush it all together, it's just 52. So that means he's got a negative on that calculation. He can't take the 199A dividends. So that deduction. So that's interesting. And at first you say that's bad news, but I'm going to come back and say, maybe that's not such bad news. So what we have to do is sort of tax the 67 of adjusted gross income or 52 of what we call taxable income. And the first thing we take care of, this is income stacking. First thing we take care of is his interest income of $2,000, his non-qualified dividends, which are ordinary income of $1,000, and the 199A dividends, which are also ordinary income. Well, he's got a $15,000 standard deduction. So $4,000 of that goes to those sources of ordinary income. Not a problem at all. Zero tax federally. Okay. But then he has the rest of his standard deduction. Well, guess what that starts to go against? That's $63,000 that we talked about of the long-term cap gains. That's the qualified dividends of 13, the 50,000 of long-term cap gains. So he exhausts the rest of that standard deduction against those. Well, that's fine. But that still leaves him with a good chunk of long-term cap gains because that's just $11,000. Well, you got to remember, though, there's a 0% long-term cap gains rate in the United States. So the first $47,025 after the standard deduction is against the 0% long-term cap gains rate. So look at that. We've got through almost all of his income. He hasn't paid a penny of federal income tax. And I'll link this NerdWallet article to prove that. All right, well, that's fine. Now, he does, to get all of the 67, we do slosh into the 15%. And it's almost $5,000. He pays $746 by my quick and dirty math on that. Well, okay. So let's look at our early retiree who's living on $90,000 a year. That's $7,500 a month. That's not opulent, but certainly not impoverished, especially if you have a paid off home, right? And you're not paying that much in federal income tax, because look what he pays in federal income tax on $67,000 of adjusted gross income, $90,000 of living expenses. He pays a whopping $746 to Uncle Sam. I've said it before that the tax rules want you early retired. Well, the tax rules are giving him a 1.11 effective rate on his income. Oh my goodness, right? Now people talk about, oh no, taxes in retirement. Well, we just got an example where we lose the QBI deduction for our little dividends and we still make out like a bandit, 1.1%. So this has a lot of implications. Now the first one is a simple one, is no 199A dividend in early retirement if we've properly structured, and it's no problem, right? That's a good outcome. I'll take, if I can get to early retirement and pay 1.1% effective tax rate, I'd be thrilled with that. I think most Americans would be thrilled with that. So yes, he doesn't get the 199A deduction for his $1,000 of 199A dividends, no problem. Now it's interesting though, one consideration I left out is the ACA premium tax credit. And this could be an area that changes in 2026. So keep your ear to the ground, stay tuned. What's interesting about this is he's really close. If we go to the 2024 federal poverty limit for a single person at 400%, he would get a small premium tax credit because he is over the 400, but you can get a premium tax credit. But in 2026, it could start to matter, and that 67 could become a problem where he'd have the cliff if they bring back that cliff. All right, he's at 67,000 of AGI. The 400% for 2024 is at 60,000 and a little change. So what could he do to increase, to get below the cliff if that's what's going on in the future, or to just increase it? The big thing he could do is take the dividends home, spend them. That's 15,000 of dividends he had that he just reinvested. I would say, well, maybe what you should do, Justin, is take those home so you have less capital gain transactions because you have less ABC mutual fund to sell to fund your living expenses. And now you're under maybe $60,000 and you're under the 400% federal poverty level. You get better ACA premium tax credit results. Stay tuned on that for 2026, by the way. So that was the third implication, just take the dividends home, don't reinvest them. The fourth and fifth implications are, one, taxable accounts are fantastic in early retirement. And look, I'm a big fan of traditional retirement accounts, but boy, you're cooking with gas if you can get to a place where you're early retired and you have capital gain assets that are low yielding. So that was another piece of this. I gave that $1 million domestic equity index fund a 1.5% yield. That's actually high for early 2025 numbers. You got to be flexible, but I'm a big fan of, look, we may want to hold bonds, international equities, domestic equities, all sorts of different things. Those domestic equities have low ordinary income and low yields, right? And if we're going to have Roth accounts, traditional accounts, taxable accounts, can't we do the tax basketing so that the only thing that's shown up on the tax return is the domestic equities? They have low yields. They keep our income low in early retirement. We can do more planning. So a fascinating case study. It's a real interesting wrinkle on the 199A dividends deduction. But it's sort of good news, right? You don't get this deduction, and the reason is you're already paying really low tax. Let me know what you think about early retirement, the 199A dividends deduction, premium tax credits in the future. So much interesting stuff going on in this regard. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time.